Oh, hello and welcome everybody. My name is Lisa Jansen. I'm also known as Job Coach Germany. How are you all doing, you beautiful wonders all around the globe? I hope you had a beautiful and great start into the new week and that you just simply are enjoying your progress with regards to your job applications. Today, I would like to use this opportunity to talk to you about my very first trip abroad on my own. So a trip that I didn't do with my parents, with my family, nor with my classmates, and what I felt and how that all came about and what was involved, all these ups and downs that I had. And this is quite a story because actually my very first trip that I did on my own was for longer than, it was for about a year, and there were quite some ups and downs involved in that. So I will probably focus on the first part today because this is something. So the first part of my journey of going abroad, moving abroad, and living without my parents, because that's a feeling that most likely many of you guys are going through as well. So not just one feeling, but this emotional roller coaster that is ahead of you if you are thinking about moving abroad. But before we start with that, I wanted to give you a quick heads up again and share with you the LinkedIn courses that were shared with me today again. So LinkedIn is sending me every week a kind of like a newsletter with the courses that you can do, and there are really interesting ones. The first one is called Writing a Cover Letter, and that is actually very interesting because in this month of May, with my newsletters, I'm actually focusing on cover letters and all of these different aspects around the cover letter. So if you don't want to miss out on those, feel free to sign up for my newsletter, but also check out the course on LinkedIn that is called Writing a Cover Letter. Then a second LinkedIn course that is offered this week for free, obviously, how to succeed in an internal job interview. And this is very interesting for everybody that is working with a company and just simply wants to do an internal switch. And that is every time something that I ask my coachees when I'm working with them. I first of all ask, okay, so what are you currently doing? What's your current job? What's your current company? And can you maybe transfer internally to a site that your company may have here in Germany? So for those of you who might be interested in that course called How to Succeed in an Internal Job Interview might be very relevant. Then a third course is called Getting into the Mind of the Hiring Manager. That's obviously something that is very interesting for you applicants because you don't know the HR background. So that's normally something that I share when my coachees are approaching me and we are, for example, working on the job interview. A question that pops up is all the time, why are they asking these questions? So, and having worked and being a recruiter, being a hiring manager myself, and having had this information and having worked in HR for more than 10 years, I know why they are asking specific questions, right? Sometimes they just want to ask certain questions because they want to see how you react under stress. But that is something that you might want to follow. Also, something that is like a little side note. And something that is really what I find very funny is that a couple of my colleagues shared with me that they weren't even listening to the applicant when they were talking. They just wanted to see how they are reacting. And in their head, they were already thinking of, oh gosh, what kind of question will I be asking next? So this is also something that the applicants never see, that side, that the recruiter might as well be nervous for that particular interview, because obviously, especially nowadays, the recruiters are those who have to be very, also kind of like a salesperson, if they really want you in their company, yeah, you could also decide to work for somebody else. And if they want you and you are a really good talent, a great expert in your field, they have to do everything to make you feel comfortable. So they are under a lot of pressure as well when they are interviewing you. Now, the last course that LinkedIn is offering this week is called Finding Your Purpose at Work. And that is very important. This course is very important for anybody at any stage with regards to your job applications, because this is just simply something that you need to reconsider over and over and over again. So you need to think about that. What's your purpose? Am I still following my purpose? Has my purpose changed over time? So you should set yourself some sort of reminder. And there's a really cool email tool that you can use that I'm using for myself as well. That's called Future Mail, something like that. Is it called Future Mail? I wanted to say Future Ego, but that's a different project that I did back in the day. Future Mail, something, Future Me, something like that. I will link it below the video so that you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, you should definitely send yourself a reminder or set yourself a reminder of when to think about your purpose and whether you're still on the right track. Okay, so that's basically everything that I wanted to share with regards to the LinkedIn courses that were shared with me. But now let's dive into my very first trip. So, this trip that I'm about to share with you had been building up the emotional roller coaster for many years. So I remember when I started going to elementary school, I was 7 years old, and that's when my parents told me, Lisa, we are planning for you to go to the United States for an exchange year, because you then can improve your English language, your cultural awareness, and all of these sorts of things. So they didn't force me to do it. I always had the chance. It's just that they planted that seed in my head when I was 7 years old. So I already knew then, okay, this is on my list. That's on my plan, and it's basically a commitment from my parents, because they were saving up. Like, I think they already started saving money for that exchange year when I was born. This obviously also has something to do with the background that my parents, because they grew up in the eastern part of Germany and where like their travel was restricted. That's everything that they ever wanted. They wanted to travel. And when I was born in 1989, and 1 year later, basically, they were able to travel all around the globe, and they have done that ever since. But they wanted to give me that opportunity to live 1 year abroad and just simply give me that opportunity. But at every stage I was able to say, yeah, no, I don't want to do that. Okay, but that plan of going to America for 1 year was was seeded when I was 7 years old, basically. So I knew from then, okay, there is the possibility of going abroad. And then obviously years passed. I switched schools in between, so from elementary to kind of like a high school, we would call that probably. So we call it Sekundarschule, and then I went to the gymnasium. And then at that stage, I was supposed to make my decision. So you have to prepare that with a particular agency and there are, I don't know how many agencies that are out there. I just simply know that my brother, who's 6 years younger than me, also had the opportunity to go abroad, and he went with a different organization. But the agency that I went with, I had to start preparing for my trip roughly about a year in advance of the trip. So my trip was, oh wow. So between 2006 and 2007, it's quite some time ago now when I think about that. But I actually, certain parts of that trip and the experiences that I had there are, just so embossed in my mind that I remember them like they happened yesterday. Especially the trip on how to actually get there. So a year ahead of that, I was supposed to start preparing. So and that means that I got lots and lots of questionnaires that I had to fill in. I had to tell I had to write in English about my family. I had to write about myself. I had to write about my motivation. I had to write about my pet, and about school, about my interests, about my hobbies, and everything. And that was already very good for me to practice my English. I mean, back in school, my English was never bad, I would say. Always had good grades, but it's always completely different if you move abroad and live in a country where you're not speaking your native language, and you're basically, yeah, speaking a language that you've learned in school for maybe maximum of 4 hours a week. Yeah. So, but I was already able to practice that at that point. So I was practicing, uh, like by writing these little essays and so on. Then I had to also do English tests. I remember I had to go to an interview to a nearer city. I think I had to go to Berlin at some point to interview for that as well, because obviously they wanted to make sure that I'm mentally stable to do some sort of trip. I mean, at that time when they were interviewing me, I was 16 years old when I then just right after I turned 17. So I think I turned 17, and then 3 days later, my flight left for America. And but in that entire interview phase, they were basically making sure, first of all, that I'm mentally stable, that I would be able to survive a year abroad without my parents, without my family, and what my aspirations were, why I did that, and so on. So that's basically what I did. And yeah, so the agency never had any objections to what my plans were, and the agency was there to arrange the flights, the connecting flights, the pickup from the airport, and basically finding a host family for me. Okay, so that's basically what they were paid for. Yeah. And I remember it was quite a lot of money. Back then it was 6,000 euros, I remember. And 6 years later, with my brother, when he went, I remember it was 10,000 euros that my parents had to pay. And that's basically just what you're paying the agency. And then on top of that, obviously, you still get your allowance, you still get your like your pocket money, how we call that. All of these things, and you can see within 6 years this price has risen. So I don't really know how much you would have to pay now, but it's probably a lot more. And also something that you that I was aware of, or it didn't really matter to me at that point, because we were always talking about America. And I actually, at that point, I thought, yes, I'm going to the United States for 1 year, and then I will be staying there forever. Like, I will come back, do my Abitur in Germany, but then at some point I'm going to live in the United States, because I was so obsessed with that country. And actually, at that point, we had been traveling to the US, I think twice. So one time when I was 10, and the second time when I was 14. My parents and my brother and I, we went on family vacation to the United States, and everything was like just like really overwhelming, really big, and it just simply felt like that's the country of multiple opportunities, right? So these things were stuck in my head, right? And that's what I was also expecting, and that's why I wanted to go to the United States. But whenever somebody's thinking about going to do an exchange here, going to the US is always the cheapest, like at least when you are planning this trip from Germany. Like, where there are also, later on in my life, I met other people who went to England, who went to Australia, who went to Japan, China, and all of these. But America was actually seen from the agencies the cheapest version of doing an exchange year. Now, the agencies explained to me, and I still don't know up until this point whether my host family actually earned any money from that. The agency told us that the families in the US offer a place to live for foreign exchange students because it's a very good reputation that they have within their community where they're living and within their church and all of these things. And that's why they don't expect to get any money. So up until this point, I don't know whether my host family actually received any money. I hope they did, at least for like living costs or like share, like for food and all of these things, because obviously that was something I was eating with them all the time. Okay, so that was basically it with regards to the preparation. And then I remember we went on a final family vacation to Crete, so Greek island, when I was 16 with my parents and my brother. So because we knew, okay, Lisa's going abroad for a year, so let's spend some quality family time together and enjoy ourselves. And that's what we did. And I remember on that holiday receiving an email telling me that I'm going to Louisiana and that I already had like the name of my host family and all of these things. But that changed like 3 days. I think 3 days before my birthday, I got a new email saying, "You're not going to Louisiana, you're actually going to Maryland." I was just, oh, okay, well, need to be very flexible here, but okay. I didn't get in touch with the previous host family that they assigned to me in Louisiana. So I was just really excited because I wanted to go to Louisiana because I really like the southern states, but I was flexible because I didn't expect anything to go where to go. So I was completely fine with that email 3 days in advance of my birthday saying, okay, you're not going to Louisiana, you're actually going to Maryland. So I was packing all my stuff and I was allowed to bring 2 big suitcases. Back then in 2006, you were still allowed to have like some sort of beauty case where you were allowed like all the liquids such as like your shampoo and all of these things, which is nowadays not allowed anymore. That thing, and I had my laptop bag and I had a backpack, and the backpack was I know a light blue and a dark blue because it was from that agency that and all of the exchange students that were traveling with me were also wearing basically that particular backpack, so that everybody knew, oh, they are from the same organization, they're from the same agency, so we know what's going on. We are kind of like a group together. Then my parents took me to Leipzig airport because that's basically the closest airport to my family's home. And Leipzig airport is really cool, very quick, and I already met a couple of other exchange students there. There was also a travel agent from that particular agency who was checking us in and just making sure that everybody was on time, that everything went smoothly. And then from there, we boarded and flew, I think, to Frankfurt, because normally that's what happens. That for international flights, that you either, or international flights in like to the US, you normally fly from Frankfurt or Düsseldorf, and that at that point I flew from Frankfurt. I think at that point I already like had to say goodbye to some of the students that were following, that were also wearing this bluish backpack, because they were then from Frankfurt going onto different planes that were heading into different directions. And but I also met other exchange students, and just got to know new acquaintances there, basically asking, oh, do you already have your host family? Do you know where you're going? And all of these things. So we all went on that plane, and from Frankfurt, I flew to Newark, and I think that was it. What was it? New York? Who knows? Now, I think I actually went to New York City at that point. And that was all still exciting because there were Germans around. We were talking in German on the plane, but I was already like getting very nervous and very excited because I thought, oh gosh, okay, so now when this plane is landing, I have to speak English from then on, and everything's going to be really exciting and everything's going to be new, and we'll see what happens. We landed, and I think that was actually the first flight where I had a person sitting next to me that became sick on the plane. It was really, well, not funny, but it was like really strange because I've never seen that before, and I was always wondering who are those people who actually need that little bag to when you get sick on the plane. And then I arrived at the airport in New York. It could have been New York or Newark, something like that. And I think it was actually Newark. And they there was supposed to be a person, like a travel agent that I had when I was in Leipzig. A similar person was supposed to be there at the airport when I landed in the US. And there were obviously other exchange students with the same backpack and everything. So I didn't feel lost at that point, but this travel agent wasn't there. And this travel agent didn't turn up. And it was a Sunday, I remember. And on that Sunday, so we had this emergency number that we were supposed to call when anything happened. And so I remember that I was sitting there with four other exchange students. I know that there were more of us at the same airport, but four of us, we just built a little group and was sitting there on our suitcases and waiting for the travel agent. And then we took turns to go to basically like a pay phone to type in that code of that emergency number, and we didn't reach anybody because I don't know, maybe because it was Sunday, nobody was working, but basically we were trying to reach someone who could help us out to let us know whether the travel agent will turn up, because we knew that at that point we were supposed to go to a hotel and stay there, but nobody ever turned up to pick us up. So at that point it was still exciting. I was a little bit annoyed, but I just thought, okay, there's nothing that I can do. I'm not missing any flights today, and even if the travel agent doesn't turn up, I'm already at the airport, because the next day I was supposed to get my final flight to my first host family. Um, so at that point, I wasn't freaking out yet, but the others were kind of. They were really annoyed, and that's yeah, that's a nice way of saying it. But they were, I mean, Germans, we like to complain, yeah, and they were complaining a lot. Then at one point, there was a girl who lost her suitcase or something. Later on, it turned out that it was not her who lost her suitcase, but another girl took her suitcase, so she had hers, and then the other one was crying because actually she lost hers. It was a really, really weird experience. And then I think we were sitting there for 3 hours, 4 hours, until finally that travel agent turned up. Now, at that point, I didn't call my parents yet, because I told them I would call them once I'm at the hotel, but I wasn't. And they were obviously already freaking out back home, because they thought Lisa should have been at the hotel already. Why isn't she calling? I remember that my mom had a phone number for the hotel, and she was ringing the hotel, and the hotel couldn't give her any information, because nobody was there, and they didn't know what kind of room number was assigned to me. So after these 3.5 hours, the travel agent finally picked us up, because she was able to see our blue backpacks, and she just said, "Oh yeah, that's just normal traffic in the city, so that just happens. It's okay." So if she had done that in Germany, it would have been probably a bollocking awaiting her. And yeah, so then from there, we went on a little bus, and that little bus took us or it was kind of like a shuttle, but there were also other exchange students that the travel agent had already collected. So basically, I think we were a group of 20 to 30 exchange students at that point, from anywhere. So they were international students. Some of them were Spanish, others were from Great Britain. A guy from Australia was there as well. Germans, yeah, all. I think there was also somebody from the Czech Republic. So all sorts of nationalities, which was really cool, because obviously then we were already able to practice our language skills. And after getting off the coach, after getting off the bus, and we came to the and checked into the hotel, and then the lady said, "Well, I have to get back to the airport to pick up some more exchange students. Here you look like a smart person and outspoken. Here I give you this list with all the names, and here are the keys. So you assign the people to the rooms." What? Well, nowadays, when I'm thinking about it, I would say, "Are you crazy? That's your job. I'm not doing your job." But obviously, I was 17 years old and I was so excited that my journey to the US is finally starting. So, of course, I did that. And I also I really like organizing stuff. So, that wasn't really an issue. So, basically what I did is I told the people, okay, who wants to share a room? Here is your card. So basically, I think the only thing that we made sure was that girls and boys were divided, because that's actually a big thing in the US, that they are making sure that the gender is separated, and that's okay, that's fine. But for me, yeah, okay, didn't really matter. But that's basically how I did that. So I gave out the keys, wrote down the room numbers of the children, because everybody there was between 15 and 17, and basically everybody went to their rooms, and there were always 4 of us in one room. So at that point I already knew, so now I'm finally in the hotel, now I can finally call my mom. So I called her, and she was already freaking out. "Oh, why are you only in the hotel now?" And it was quite late at that point as well. So I think it was kind of like 10, 11ish at night, and I remember that I needed to get up early to get my flight in the morning. And I thought that the travel agent would be there in the morning, but no, there was nobody. And I remember that I met up with 3 or 4 other exchange students in the morning. So we had like a little lunch pack that we were able to pick up from the kitchen area in the hotel, and then we just simply used the shuttle bus again to get back to the airport. And just mind you, remember all of the different like I had my 2 suitcases, my backpack, my laptop bag, and my beauty case. And with all of that, always in and out of the bus, in and out of the plane, basically. So at that point, we went into the bus, and the shuttle bus was, I mean, we were very lucky that this bus was already operating, and he just asked, "Okay, where do you need to go?" And I said, "I don't know. We don't know where we need to go." And he said, "Well, you need to know a terminal where you're going." And I said, "Well, if there was a travel agent, we would know where we need to go, but we don't." So that was really weird. And I remember that I had only the flight number on my travel documents. So I knew what kind of flight number I had to go to. And I think I told him, "Okay, just take us to Terminal A," or something like that. I don't know why I said that. I think it was just like, I don't know. I just thought, okay, that would be a good idea. Let's go there. So he dropped us off at Terminal A, but you could see from outside that it was dark and closed. But the bus left. And he left us there. And it's just like, oh no, what are we doing? Hopefully we're not missing our flights. Hopefully everything goes well. And then I remembered, okay, at this airport, there is this air train. So I told everybody, like we were this group of 4, and I said to them, "We just need to get to that air train, because there is basically like this board where you can see all of the different flights and when they're leaving and which terminal we need to use and so on." And we saw the air train, but there was another little obstacle. And that obstacle was that we had to cross the highway with our suitcases, and then jump over a fence, drop our suitcases over the fence, go through a garage, and then up the elevator to that air train. Was quite an experience, I have to admit, and it was probably quite risky, but it was so early in the morning that there were hardly any cars on the highway. But it was really, now when I think about that, it's just really crazy what happened there. Yeah, and then basically we got to the air train, and it was like I said, and here I'm just really, I was very lucky that I had the opportunity beforehand to travel to the US with my parents twice, so that I already knew how international airports work and how that actually looks like. The others were just simply lost. I could have told them anything. They would have just simply followed. Really weird. Yeah, and then at that point, everybody basically went again in their directions. So they went to their terminals. I went to my terminal, and then I already knew, okay, that is my final flight. It's my final flight before this adventure of being in the US starts. And yeah, that flight was, I think, just maybe like an hour, 2 hours max, because I was flying to Washington, D.C., where I was being picked up and then taken to Maryland, first Mechanicsville. And I was so nervous. Oh my gosh. And I thought, okay, so I had been working for this, like preparing everything and like getting in the right mindset, having dreamed of going and living in the US for 10 years, because I started thinking about this when I was 7, right now, and then I was 17, and then I had been thinking about that so long. And then I was sitting there in this plane, and I remember that the steward did his little exercise of like this emergency exercises that they're doing at the beginning of the flight, and he was rapping it, and I loved it. That was like the best emergency announcement ever. Like the preparation for that, there was no emergency, but it's just like how he did that. Like it was a real performance, so that was really cool. And then everything turned quiet. You got yourself like a water to drink, and then I was alone with my thoughts, and I had a window seat, I remember, and I started crying. Oh no. And I'm a very emotional, very sensitive person. So whenever I watch a movie, it could be any sort of Disney movie, it could be any sort of dramatic movie, I start crying very easily. But at that point, obviously, and I just thought to myself, why are you crying, Lisa? Why are you crying? It's just like, it's your dream. And you've been dreaming about that for 10 years. So just enjoy whatever is coming. But I was crying because I thought, oh no, I'm really not going to see my family and my friends, my school, my classmates, my teachers for a year. That was the moment when I realized that. And that was just really kind of like a shock. And I thought, oh no, oh no, oh no, I'm going to miss so much. I like missing out on experiences, on parties, on having fun with my friends, and all of these things. But I also at the same time was so excited and overwhelmed, like thinking, what's going to happen? Will they understand me? Will they wait for me in this at the airport with a huge poster with balloons? Will I get a really cool host family and so on? Will the travel agent be there? Will there be somebody that picks me up on time? Will I have to wait 3.5 hours again? All of these thoughts were like rushing through my mind. And that's why I was quite overwhelmed at that point. But it wasn't like I wanted to get back to mommy. It wasn't like that. It was just like, oh gosh, like kind of like a crying eye of sadness, and kind of like a crying eye due to excitement. And the flight passed by very quickly. Then I went to the baggage area, got my suitcases, and that's really cool. So in Germany, when you're being picked up at the airport, your family and friends and everybody that is picking you up cannot go into the baggage area. But in the US, at least at that airport, I don't know how that is today, but when I arrived in Washington, D.C., the people that will pick you up can actually enter that baggage area. So I picked up my baggage, and I was waiting. There was nobody, no poster, no balloons, no travel agent, no host family, nobody. And I thought, oh no, not again. Now I have to wait another 3.5 hours for them to come back, for somebody to pick me up. So I decided, okay, no, I'm just doing like the smart German move and go to the information stand, and let's make an announcement. So I went to the lady, and the lady said, okay. So I told her, yeah, I'm an exchange student from Germany. I'm waiting for, yeah. So I already thought that I knew the name of the lady that was supposed to pick me up. I'm not going to say that name here, so just for privacy reasons. But she was supposed to pick me up, and I told that the lady at the information stand, and so she made an announcement through, basically everywhere in the airport they were able to hear it. So like, Miss so and so, Lisa Jens is waiting for you in terminal in the baggage area. Please pick her up, something like that. 10 minutes later, this lady turned up and she was furious. How can you do that? I'm only late for like half an hour or something like that. I don't remember. It was just really weird because I didn't know. So I told her, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be rude. I didn't mean to be impatient, which I actually am. I'm very impatient. But something that I'm working on. But the problem was that I was stuck at the airport yesterday and I was waiting already for 3.5 hours and I didn't know whether that was going to happen today again. That's why I did that. I asked the lady to do that announcement. She didn't really like that, but it was okay at that point. She still didn't have any posters and no balloons, which was fine, because I already knew at that point that it was not my final host family. It was just kind of like um how do they call that? It was kind of like a camp for exchange students until they have their final host family. So these things, that's basically what happened. And then I remember I was so excited, I was so happy and so ready to use my English skills. So I was talking to that lady the entire time in the car. And from the airport in Washington D.C. back to Mechanicsville, where my first destination was with that lady. Was I think roughly an hour by car, and it was so exciting. It was so cool. Everything was so big. Like, a car was big, the streets were big, the highway was big, everything was just really, really huge. And the weather was so good. Oh, Maryland, I remember that. It's just such a really, really nice climate there, and everything was green, and there was a lot of water around as well. So all of these things. And yeah, so I was chatting to that lady and she was trying to also find out more about me, because obviously she had read all my essays that I had written the year before. So she knew who I was, and what I was like, and that I'm interested also in sports and all of these things. But she was like asking me all about hobbies and what I would like to do, because obviously she was also responsible for signing me up for my high school. And my high school was called Great Mills High School in Maryland, in Lexington Park. And there were tryouts to do, for example, tryouts for the volleyball team and all of these things. And that's basically what she wanted to find out, whether I would be interested in doing that. And I said, yeah, I'm basically open to any sort of sport, whatever is going on. And I must say, because when I was younger, or just in general, because I like learning so much, I also had always a good experience going to school. I enjoyed going to school. It was never annoying to me. So I was really, really excited to just simply experience the American way of going to a high school. Yeah, you normally here in Germany learn a little bit about high schools from movies that you're watching, but it's always different when you're somewhere and living there in the US on your own, right? And so we got to that house, and where the lady lived. She had 3 children. I was sharing a room with her youngest, and her eldest was already in college, somewhere in Salisbury, I think it was called. And so that was by the coast. Maryland, the state in general, was very close to the ocean, so that was already really, really cool for me to be in that tropical area. And then yeah, and her son, that was the middle-aged. Middle-aged sounds now really weird, but like the middle child of them, he was at one of the high schools where all of the exchange students went. So we knew that already. It was kind of like from my high school, a rival high school called ChapterCon, if anybody was interested in that. But yeah, so they had a huge house. They had 4 cars. They had a pool, a garden, a trampoline, and everything that an exchange student was hoping for. So basically, I thought, oh, this is the American dream. This is the dream that I had for 10 years. I wanted to be with with a family like that. Yeah. Um, at that point, I think there was no other exchange student. There was one girl that was the previous exchange student of that particular family. But then over the next couple of days and weeks, there were more students to turn up. And then at some point, I think we were like 10 exchange students staying in our home. And that was also like really, really cool because it felt like camp. It felt like I was on a holiday trip with my friends. I was meeting new people. We were chatting and so on. But the experience was really, really frustrating as well because I didn't have a host family yet. And what the lady from this first exchange family of this first welcome host family basically told us was that we were supposed to find our host families on our own through going to events, through dressing up nicely, through going to church and being very polite and explaining to everybody how nice we are. And also at the same time, um, yeah, like telling us that our punishment if we weren't to find a host family would be that we had to go home. Nowadays, I'm an adult and I know that this would have never happened. And I also knew that like half a year in already that this would have never happened because there was an exchange student that was way too shy. He was from Vietnam. He didn't speak much. He was really kind, very, very if you took the time to talk to him, he was really, really a nice person and he was very smart, but he was very shy and he just simply didn't want to talk to other host families. And he would never go out there and basically sell himself to other host families. And that's why he basically stayed with that particular welcome host family. And after I think half a year, he moved states. So he wasn't staying in Maryland anymore. I think he moved then to Washington State or something like that, where he then finally found another host family. But that's like, she threatened us. She threatened us with telling us, okay, you need to find a host family or otherwise you're going back home. Would have never happened because obviously my parents paid a lot of money, right? But at that point, I thought that was real. Yeah, I didn't understand. I mean, she was at that point my legal guardian. And so yeah, naive as I was as a young teenager, I believed what she said. So I was doing everything, dressing up nicely, and basically going to every event that she took us to, from church to church, and just talking to oh, yeah, probably more than 20, 30 host families to tell them, hey, I'm Lisa from Germany and I don't have a host family yet. And if I don't find a host family, I have to go back home. So basically that was my sentence, or those were my sentences that I always said. And then I got talking to them. They obviously knew that I was outspoken, that I was friendly, that I was like a very active person as well, very kind as well. So they didn't have an issue with me, and there were other things that were happening, but at that point I wasn't really overwhelmed yet. It was just simply still kind of like a competition, and I like a good competition. So it was kind of like competing with all the other exchange students that were there, because everybody was just yeah, selling themselves to the host families basically at every of those events. And I finally found a very smart and friendly and kind girl that was called yeah, Rachel. I can say her name because Rachel's my host family, my host sister basically. That's where I then finally stayed, and I met her through the volleyball tryouts. The volleyball tryouts happened, I think, like 3 weeks after I first arrived in the US. And a very good friend of mine from Switzerland and we both tried out for volleyball. We both got into varsity team, and then there we also had to introduce ourselves, and that's how we found our host families basically. And I remember that I yeah, just simply had At that point, I was still so overwhelmed because everything was so big, everything was so new, the school was new, and then I was changing host families, and all of a sudden, nothing was big anymore. So it was a small house, 2 cars. Still, that's still a lot, yeah. But I thought of that American dream, like a huge house, huge yard, swimming pool, a car for myself that I could probably do and learn my and get my license there and all of these things. But that's not what I got. I got a host family that was very kind and very, very helpful, supportive, really like a family. They would hug me if I got homesick. But because I had this switch in families, and it was for like the first month was more like a camp holiday vacation version, and then moving to my final destination where I then realized I'm going to stay here for the next 10, 11 months. I freaked out completely, and it was to the point that my body overreacted, to the point that I got sick. And I had to go to the loo very often. I was allergic to all the animals that were there. I was just simply not used to having animals around: dogs, cats, hamster, turtle, fish, and all of these. So back at home with my family, I only had a bird. And that was like my allergies were really acting up, and I just didn't know what was going on. I couldn't keep the food to my stomach because I felt sick all the time. And I remember the next day when it was after the first day when I went to my host family and then I went back to school, like all the other exchange students that were sharing like French class. We always all had French class together. And they were so excited. So, how is your host family? And I just simply started crying. And whenever I looked in the mirror, I just thought, oh my gosh, I'm staying with the host family and I don't feel good. Then I also remember that it was tornado time. So there was a tornado coming, and we had to stay in the hallway. At the high school, not knowing whether we can go back home. Nothing happened, but it was just a precaution to go into the hallway and sit there. And I was simply still crying. Then there was also what was that called? It's like a counselor that they had at the school, and that counselor was basically helping me and asking me, okay, what do you want to do? Yeah, and then at some point I realized that I had a culture shock, just because I then realized, okay, so you're actually here, this is what you have dreamt of the last 10 years. Now live with it, whatever situation you were in. So, and I think the biggest problem for me at that point was that I realized that I'm not going to have the room for myself. um so that was really, really weird, and I always said, no, that's not going to be an issue. But actually, if you're sharing a room with somebody, you need to realize that there's simply no privacy. Yeah, and that is something that you need to keep in mind. So the only privacy time that I had was basically when I was in the bathroom. So whenever I was sad and I wanted to cry and I didn't want to cry in front of my host family, I would go into the bathroom. So in the first couple of days with my new host family, I spent a lot of time in my bathroom. Then also there was this rule that I wasn't allowed to call my parents if there was anything wrong, but I would have to talk to the coordinator first. So that lady that was organizing everything for me in the welcome host family. And then if that didn't work, I would have to call the agency directly in Boston. That agency would then call the site in Germany that was, I don't know, somewhere in Frankfurt, I think. And those people would then call somebody in my area, and they would then call my parents. So that was the loop that they would go, just in order to make sure that the child is not overreacting. Anyway, I called my parents because just imagine being like a 17-year-old and being on your first trip abroad all on your own, being really sad and frightened what's going on with your body, and just simply not knowing what is going on. You call your mom. So that's what I did. And I actually, at some points, I was trying to change the host families until I realized, okay, it's a culture shock what I'm having here. And there were so many different things that happened to me. I didn't even process all of that information, like from the arrival, then staying in that welcome family camp, and then going to and moving to a new family, finding a new family, and selling myself to them. All of these things, I didn't process that in enough amount of time. So that was basically the problem. And I remember that I got yelled at through the phone from said coordinator, and it was the worst conversation I've ever had in my life, because somebody was yelling to me or yelling at me in a language that wasn't my native language, and she used words that I would have never heard from my parents, because obviously I was always well behaved, and they didn't have to use any weird or bad language with me, but this lady did. And that was really shocking to me. So I was really overwhelmed at that point as well. And that's when I told my host sister, Rachel, can we please go for a walk? Because then I could clear my head and all of these things. And that's what we did. And at that point, I decided for myself, I had been working for this or towards this year for 10 years. And I'm not just going to let some allergies or not being able to eat or holding any food in. Uh, I'm not letting that keep me from realizing and living my dream. And that's basically when everything changed, and I was able to enjoy this experience as well. I'm not saying that everything was easy. There were always times when I was missing my family, especially around special holidays like family birthdays, or Christmas, New Year's, Easter, everything that my family normally was celebrating. Those things, that's when I was missing them the most. um but it was easier because my host family was so kind and so nice, and they were like also organizing all sorts of trips to visit their relatives around the US. So I remember one time going to Chicago, another time going to Florida, and then another host family also took me to New York. So it was really, really exciting. But every trip, wherever you go, will always have ups and downs. And that's basically the gist of my story that I wanted to share with you. You can prepare your trip or your life coming to Germany. Everything can be fine and work out really well, even if you have some ups and downs. But there can be these times when you feel lonely, when you feel that you're homesick, and that's completely normal. You can have a culture shock. The German culture is really strange to some people, and I totally understand that. I remember after my living and after my time in the UK, actually, after having lived there for around 3 years, I remember I had another culture shock coming back, because I was so overwhelmed from the rudeness of the Germans that I thought, okay, I don't know what's going on here. So that's just something that I want to assure you. You are not alone, okay? There are people out there that can help you, and it's always good and very important for you to find friends. Make friends that are going through the same thing like yourself. And if you feel very bad for a very long time and it never stops, then you need to search for some professional help. But also, there are culture experts that you could seek, that actually know how you feel and that have the right methods to help you and guide you through that process of adjusting to a new culture. So basically, that was what I wanted to share. And I see now that I've spoken nearly an hour, and that was just part of this entire trip. So thank you very much for everybody that was here. I see that there were like Daydreamer was here, Hossein was here, Karen, Kaveri, Ola was here, more Kay, Fatih, Vinit, Settle in Berlin. Everybody was here, probably also on the other social media channels. Let me know in the comments if you want to, where your first international trip abroad went, so where you went on your own, all by yourself, and how you felt. So wish you a wonderful Tuesday and see you all again tomorrow. Bye bye.